Hey, this is Kevin Locken with Mitchell Acoustical. Today, we're going to take you guys through a step-by-step process of installing an acoustical grid ceiling. Now, before we start, I want to give you guys the components of the actual grid ceiling. This is the wire. This is what carries the mains to hold the weight of the ceiling. This is the wall angle. This actually is a shelf for the grid to actually hold itself on that you screw into the drywall. This is the main, and they'll eventually have a flange on it here so you can connect larger pieces. But this is the slot line that eventually has the T put into it to clip in there to hold the tile and the weight of the actual suspended ceiling. For aesthetic purposes, a lot of these rooms and how they're designed is equal borders. And so what that leads me as the installer to find out is it centerline T or centerline tile that then I can adjust by finding the center of the room and adjusting the mains accordingly or adjusting the T's accordingly to the slot lines. So here I'm gonna go ahead and find the center of the room. Which is 164. So we know that that's 82. So now that I've got my center on my T wall, I'm gonna go 4 foot because T's are laid out in every 2 foot. Mains are in every 4 foot, T's are in every 2 foot. So I'm gonna go and lay it out because these are where I'm gonna rivet to the wall every 4 foot. Perpendicular to that mark, we're gonna go ahead and find this center on this side. 10 foot 2, so that's 5 foot 1. And I'm gonna go ahead and mark that center. Now, this center, I'm gonna take 2 foot on each side because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run my mains parallel to this wall. So I've got my center mark for my mains, but I still have to go a step further with that. Now, what I have to do is I have to find the center of my mains. So I'm gonna take it 2 foot on either side of my center mark and write an M on there. Now, if this is a bigger room, you would typically, continue going with those marks. This is a smaller room, just doing it for instructional purposes.
Hey everybody, I'd like to just take a quick moment here and go through the layout process with you, identifying what components of this layout are main T's, 4 foot cross T's, and 2 foot cross T's, because we're going to be dealing with each component. So from the video we've seen from Kevin, and from what we may know, the perimeter of our room, we're going to install the wall angle. Now, looking at this layout, some of you are like, okay, I know where the mains go. Some of you may have some questions, so we're going to run through this together. What I've done and what Kevin has also done in his layout video is he's put an M for where the mains go, and I've done the same here. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the mains using my green highlighter. So those are going to be our main T's. Those are the longest runs, and these are the components that we're going to have to suspend with our hangers. You're going to notice this equal symbol on each side, and that's because everybody's unit is going to be slightly different in size, and all that matters to your instructors for marking purposes is that you have a 2 foot by 4 foot light in the center of your room. I can't stress enough that how much in carpentry practices in general, whether we're framing a floor, a wall, a window, a door, a bulkhead, a valance, or a chase, it's always important to know what your centers are and what you're going to end up with, because at the end of the day, appearance matters quite a bit. So moving on, next we're going to locate our 4 foot cross T's. So I'm going to highlight our 4 foot cross T's in orange. So we've got one here, one here, and one here. Our 4-foot crosties connect to our mains every 24 inches on center. And just like Kevin's little song that he sings in the video about where to join the each cross tee. So I think he says 1, 2, 3, and it goes into the 4th hole. So that's very similar to the song that I teach my apprentices and that I sing even in my own head. So when I'm laying out my 4-foot cross tees, you're going to notice between this connection and this connection, there's going to be 3 holes in the middle. So 1, 2, 3. And those holes are going to be 6 inches on center. So you got 6, 12, 18, 24. Which is why when you see all of these holes, you're going to sing that little song in your head. You're going to go 1, 2, 3 into the 4th. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and then into the 4th knockout. And lastly, we're going to lay out our 2-foot cross tees with my pink highlighter. So you've got 2 2-foot cross tees there. Now, depending on what's left over as far as cross tees in our supplies for the lab, this could be a 2-foot cross tee, or a 4-foot cross tee could do both of these. Okay, I hope everybody understands that. If we make this a 2-foot cross tee, we might be cutting off a few inches off one side and throwing that away. Whereas if we use a 4-foot cross tee here, we'll be cutting some off, but the offcut we should be able to use for this piece. So that's all going to be hinged on what's left over as far as material, and we may just challenge you guys and see how you can put it all together.
Now we're ready to set our ceiling height, and what we usually do is look on the print, see what it says, and it'll say 9-foot AFF. AFF means above finished floor. So we'll typically go about 3/8 higher than that to account for that finished floor, because you don't know what fixtures are actually coming after your ceiling, and that might butt up right to it. So I'll put a little mark there, and that's where I'll start. Then I'll come about 6 foot off the wall and make another mark. Now we've got our laser, and we've already got a piece of wall molding up, and the way that we level it is put it on the wall, turn it on, adjust the height, and then we'll go all the way across. What I usually do is screw the wall angle every 8 to 16 inches, depending on how corners come together and everything else like that. I usually don't put the screws into the studs, because if you have to adjust it every so often, whether there's a duct in the way, whether there was an incorrect height, it'll sometimes blow out the drywall for you. So you're better off not putting it in and maybe putting it in later once you're all locked in. But most of the ceilings will lock themselves in if you have enough screws just in the drywall. Now we're gonna go ahead and set our height for what our actual grid ceiling is gonna be in the field. And when I say the field, I mean this whole open space here and how to level it. So there's a laser card that comes with these lasers, and you clip them onto the grid. Go ahead and turn this on. And what I usually do is I come down two inches to the center of that laser card. And then I'll clip it, and you guys will see this. I'll clip it on my grid and level it down to this center mark at 2 inches right here. The next step is the jet line, and the jet line will actually set the tone for how I put the whole ceiling together. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and set my jet line. Since I have my marks here on the floor for my mains, I know how far to center my grid, my main, off of the wall. We're gonna come at 38 inches. I'm gonna come, take a mark, 38 inches, Put it on the wall. And I'm gonna string a line from this point all the way to the other side of the wall. And then I'll do the exact same thing with the T-line coming here. And what that should do for me is that should square my grid, and I can make little adjustments here and there, but that typically squares your grid for you. Now I'm gonna check my T-line for what the distance was for here, and go ahead and make that my slot, which is 35 inches. These are our slot lines. And I know that I just measured this T-line back and it was 35 inches. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come here, stick our tape in there and pull it back and cut it to 35 inches.
Once you cut your main tee, you're going to be at a point where, and the question is going to be, how do I secure my main tee to the wall mold without using a rivet? Because it's going to slide this way and it's going to slide this way. So there's two ways we can do it. One is to cut yourself a 2.5 inch piece, more or less, doesn't have to be precisely 2.5, and we're going to apply this piece in here like so. And once that is placed in there and we know the location, we're going to install a screw here, screwing it into the back of the angle, and preferably a drywall screw or a framing screw. And then after that, you can join the main tee to the wall mold via framing screw from this side driving into the piece of wall angle, or from the wall angle driving into the top of the main tee. So you've got this sort of L bracket that's going to hold your main in place on the wall angle and secured, and then as we look from below, you're not going to see a rivet in the bottom of the ceiling, which again, it's not wrong, it's just a different look, and I think the look that we're looking for is no rivet. So that's one way you can do it. Just a little recap. So we're gonna push our main onto the wall, we're gonna line it up for positioning. I do recommend everybody place a pencil mark underneath their main wherever they need to accurately secure it. And then we're just going to use a small piece of angle like so, like a bracket, screw it to the back of the angle, side of the wall mold, or sorry, side of the main tee, and then that holds it in place. So that's number one. The second way that I like to do it is, my personal preference is not to use this main tee idea, but what I like to do is use the material that I have. So if, for example, if I've measured my tee and my measurement lands here, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my piece 1 inch approximately larger, and I'm going to remove it. Okay, so the piece is now 1 inch longer than it needs to be, and that's because I'm going to use that extra 1 inch of material to help me support this main to the wall mold and skip that step in adding an extra component. So the way I do this is I cut on an angle like so, making sure that the tip of my snips lines up with the mark. Okay, can everybody see that? And then I do the same thing here, straight. Now, the reason why this is on an angle, it's important. I'll explain that in a minute. And then what I do is I cut off this top little bubble. I'm just calling it a bubble because it's hollow. So I cut this away. And then I will fold this down out of the way. And if I've done it properly, it will fold on my mark. Then I'll use my snips and just bang this flat. And then reach underneath and cut that off. So now what I've done is I've given myself something to screw to that anchors the main tee to the wall mold, which is an important part of holding your system true and square. Everybody see how that looks? So We're going to go back to Kevin's video, and he mentions the rivet technique. It's not wrong. I'm just saying for the lab that we are working on, we're not going to be using rivets. We're going to be using one of these two techniques.
And you're going to do these with both mains. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set it on my line that I set. Any of these long wires we'll go ahead and cut. And you want to try and pull this as tight as possible, but we'll make it right. It'll sit by the end. I'll go ahead and line it up with my laser. Crimp it, and I usually set my clines right on the ledge because that's about the height of where your bend actually ends up. And I'll go ahead and I'll bend it right at the ledge, pull it through. And I'm actually not going to tie these yet. Sometimes you can tie them when they're actually nice and taut, like this one is. This one seems to be a little bit wound up, so I have to actually put some more weight on it to get it to go.
Okay, in this video we're going to talk about bending and tying your hangers. So after we've done the layout of our ceiling and we've accurately located where our mains are going to be placed and suspended from, and that layout is done on the floor, then we're going to need to plumb up using a plumb bob, a chalk line, a level, a laser level, our measuring tape. There's lots of different ways we can transfer the layout marks from the floor up to the ceiling. And then we're going to drill our hangers into the 2x4 support that we're going to install above the cubby. Now, I happen to have these side cutters or nippers. That's what we call them in the field. So this is more of a lath and plaster type tool. It's for tying wire, cutting it, it's for prying, it's for bending, it's for tightening. I would say these cut very similar to a pair of linesman pliers, but for the acoustical ceiling and the drywall world, this is the recommended tool because it helps with tying ceilings and cutting hangers at the right height. It also helps with bending hangers as well. So I'm going to give you guys an example of how to properly bend a hanger. So whether it's your linesman pliers and you're pinching it and you're bending against it, or you've got one of these and you just slide it through, a proper bend, okay, should look like this. Okay, nice and tight. I don't want to see bends that look like this. Okay, so that radius here is a lot bigger than this one. And the reason why this is so important is that when the ceiling gets loaded, and when I say loaded, I just mean loaded with all of the T-bar system, the ceiling tile, the lights, the mechanical units, the HVAC, the sprinkler heads, anything that's going to apply pressure to these hangers and load your ceiling. If your ceiling hangers are not bent tight enough, what's going to happen is that after your ceiling is loaded, the ceiling will begin to sag. Okay, so this is a tightly bent hanger, and this is what we're going to be looking for, because whether you're doing this at home, on a job, or planning, or looking at it, or inspecting this work, depending on which avenue of employment you guys go, this is what you want to look for, a nice tight bend. Another thing to keep in mind is bending the hanger alone is not enough. We need to wrap the wire around itself a minimum of 3 times. Now the way I like to do that is to pinch this bend right here. Pinch it whether it's with my linesman pliers or with my nippers. I'm going to pinch it like so, but I'm not going to cut it. I'm just going to use it to hold. And then I'm going to wrap this wire tight one way, and then I'm going to twist my wrist and pull this wire with my thumb, making sure that I have 3 tight wraps around the hanger, just like so. So this is, in its suspended form, this is what it should look like. A nice tight bend around the loop. We've got at least 3 wraps. So this is the, I'm going to say that this is the acoustical ceiling code right here. A nice tight bend and a minimum of 3 wraps. Any building inspector or engineer, these are the things that they are going to be looking for. Now here's the difference. This, in my right hand, this would be an improperly tied hanger. It does not have enough wraps. The bend is not tight enough. This would fail an inspection by any engineer or architect for multiple reasons. It does not have the minimum 3 bends, and as I said earlier, it does not have a tight enough bend at the top through the hanger. This one in my other hand is a properly tied hanger. This will suspend your ceiling at the height you bend it at, and it will not sag, and it will not dip. That's because the bend is tight. I have a minimum of 3 wraps. This ceiling is not going to dip or go anywhere. So keep this in mind when you are suspending your own main tees in your huts, because you will be graded on the way you bend and tie your hangers.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clamp this one, and then I'll just repeat the process with a second main, put that one up, and then we'll go ahead and connect them. Now that we've got both of our mains in the air, we're ready to start stuffing tees. But you could say like, hey Kev, this is way off, but I'm going to get that corrected as we go. So I'm going to take this tee, shove it in this corner, and I have my jet line, and I'm going to cut it right in the center of where my jet line is. What that'll do is that'll center my main that I already have in the air. If you can see, now I've got it, it's a little bit better, and I can just adjust it with a clamp and go ahead and clamp it down. Now that this first main's straightened, we're gonna go ahead and stuff some tees so that we can go ahead and square it. And we're gonna go, if this is a 2x4 system, 3 slot lines and then a T. So 1, 2, 3, T, which I'll start saying to myself a little bit here, 1, 2, 3, T. The most important thing to do in grid, once it's up, is to go ahead and square it. Now, me, from my background, I know that it's 52 1/4 corner to corner. And what we do to use that is, we know that this is 23 to the inside, 47 to the inside here, using Pythagorean theorem, is 52 1/4. So we'll go ahead and we will square it up. I got 52 1/4 here, and just so I know that I'm correct, I come to the other side and 52 1/2, but I think that that's just a little bit. We'll go ahead and, so now we'll go ahead and start locking this system in. We know that this is square. I know that I've got my T on the line over here to straighten that first main, so I know that I'm in the right direction. So I'm gonna go ahead now, take my punch the grid, and take my rivet and rivet this main. Now that's locked in, I can go to the next main, get this punched and riveted, and then go on to that next T so that we can be 3/4 of the way locked in. And this shouldn't go anywhere once I get to that T. This T, free floating, was just me looking down at the floor and kind of eyeing up where it was gonna go. So now I have to straighten it. What I'll do is I'll take my clamp, and since we know that this is square, I'll go ahead, I'll put a clamp on that, I will straighten that T, and then I'll come and I'll bring this over to it. I'll eye up, making sure that this is straight, clamp that back down, pull this T off, and if you look up here, it moved, the line moved a little bit, so I have to take it and I have to adjust it just ever so slightly, give it a couple love taps. All right, now, gonna do the exact same thing that we did to the mains. Go ahead and rivet this over here. Okay. Then what I'll do along this wall is I'll pull 4 foot from this edge and I'll go ahead and mark my next rivet. Everything that you want to do in ceilings is either in 2 or 4 foot intervals. So I'll go ahead with the mains and the T's and I'll go ahead and lock them in every 4 foot. I'll go ahead and mark this here. Throw in a T. I'll go ahead and I'll lock that in. It's on my mark over here. I'll pull it a little bit this way. Sorry, my back's to you guys. Get that set up. Rinse and repeat. And I'll go all along this wall. I'll go all along that outside wall and get this thing all punched in. And then the last part of this, setting the grid, is just putting in some of the T's. And that's not such a big deal. This is a 2x4 system, so there's actually not 2 foot T's that need to go in here. Just 4s, and then it's 2x4 lights and tile. Last piece of the puzzle is getting the mains to actually clip together. So what that entails is they move past each other just like the slot line, except it's these two that hook into each other. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take one of those hook ends, punch it to the back of the wall angle, and go about 1 inch to the inside. I'm gonna cut it. I don't measure them. You guys can actually measure from the face to the wall angle. If you're a beginner, that may be a better way to actually do it. And then I'm gonna punch these together that you should hear a clip. Okay, and now all I'm gonna do is set it on my line and go ahead and rivet it down just like I did the other 4. Okay, there's only one thing left to do. Now we know that the first initial wires that started to hang my mains are good. So I'm gonna go ahead and twist these. And then every 4 foot needs to be a wire on the ceiling. That's just basic IBC code, and that's the International Building Code. So we're gonna go ahead, do the exact same thing. Throw up my laser, a little bit low, I can adjust it, grip it, pull it through, and go on to the rest of the ceiling. You want to twist it about 4 to 6 times. That's how we take a ceiling start to finish. It's 6 or 7 basic components, whether it's your layout, starting your mains, starting your wall angle, your wires, all that stuff. It all starts from the blueprint and you have to know your basic layout.
I'm just going to do a quick little demo here on how to successfully take apart your ceiling so that it can be reused for the next group. So as shown in the video, if this is our main T and we are clicking in our cross T's, we're going to join one until it clicks. I'm just going to flip mine over and I'm going to join the other one. Okay. So from the underneath, this is what it looks like. Now, if you're standing underneath the ceiling, you may be tempted to pull down. I'm just going to adjust my camera here for a quick second. If this is your ceiling, you may be tempted to pull your cross tees down. If you pull it down, you will damage the main tee, which is here, and it will be unusable. The way that this system is designed to be taken apart is to, in fact, put a firm grip onto the main tee, grabbing the cross tee, as long as it's not screwed on the opposite end, and you lift it up, and that will release it. That releases it without any damage. And then you're going to be left with one cross tee stuck inside the hole of the main. This is where it gets a little finicky. If you guys can see this little tab right here, every manufacturer has a tab that holds the cross tee in the slot and prevents it from popping back out. The best thing to do is to just give that a little squeeze. I'm going to squeeze it here with my nippers. So I've given it a little pinch, and that allows it to slide out of the hole. What we need to do to get it ready for the next group is to just use either the tip of a screwdriver or the tip of your snip and just try to pry it back open again. I'm going to use a screw for this little demonstration here. Come on, zoom in. There we go. So I place it inside here, and then I'm going to bend this little guy right back out. Okay? Can everybody see that? If it's bent, if it's not flipped out, I will show you. And we're putting it back inside the hole. It does not click in, and it does not stay in there. But when we get this little tab and we pry it open, just that little bit, it's enough to make the cross tee click into the system, and then it doesn't fall out, because that little piece is just gripping on the backside.